Let's record this bad boy. Huzzah. Here we go.
You think it's just going to be one episode?
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smells Like Teen Angst podcast. I'm Sarah, and I am here with my cohorts of all time. Keiki, say hello.
Well, hiya.
Jordan, say hello.
Hello.
Just in case people don't know what our voices sound like at this point. So we are going to be diving into the first book of this Fourth Wing series. Now, Keiki is the one who convinced Jordan and I to read it, and then Jordan and I also loved it and said, we're talking about it.
No, backtrack to this, Sarah. Backtrack. I said it should be our next book when we finished Hunger Games. Keiki just started reading it before the rest of us because I'm lazy.
That's fair. And I have to say, after reading this first book, and what's exciting is the second book just came out, so we don't have to wait for it.
Can I tell you something? Mine already came in the mail, and I'm trying to tell myself to read it very slowly. That way I don't spoil things during this recording.
Yeah, see, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Record it.
I did the same thing, girl. I'm like 6 chapters in, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm on chapter 7 right now.
I feel like from what I've seen on TikTok, like the first 5 chapters are just exposition. So like, I don't think there's that much that you can accidentally spoil at that point. But after reading this, I feel like I have not loved or been this excited about a book series in years, since Twilight, since Hunger Games. You know what I mean? Like since Harry Potter, like something hasn't stirred like this in me. And I feel like a decade.
I know, right? That's why I was like, I'm in love.
My most recent was A Court of Thorn and Roses, but I'll say before this and A Court of Thorn and Roses, like, I didn't care about book series. I did not. And now I'm back in business, baby.
It's like one-offs or nothing. You know, because it was like very much Evelyn Hugo, obsessed. Daisy Jones and the Six, obsessed. But like, yeah, Jordan, I agree. Series-wise, this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely was someone who went into this not knowing it was about to be a series. I was just like in a book slump and was like, let me try something because, you know, everyone says book talk usually lets me down. I'm not gonna lie. Book talk lets me down. And I was like, but everyone says this is good, you know, and I am obsessed. I am kind of mad that it's going to be 5 books because that is a lot of time to invest, especially when the second one just came out. But I mean, I'm invested. I don't know where we can go from here because if anything is like the first book, this author is not going to give us what we want.
I mean,
I was so skeptical because, like you said, book talk. And then, like, the reason that I wanted to do it, though, is because people that I trust kept telling me, you got to read Fourth Wing. You got to read Fourth Wing. And I will tell you, I posted a picture of, like, the book cover to my Instagram. And like people that I didn't even know read books were replying to that story and being like, it's so good. Oh my God, I'm so excited for you.
That's amazing.
My biggest surprise was the amount of random people that I am friends with on Instagram. You know, I don't have a huge Instagram following. And I kept seeing all these people follow the author and like her post. So then I started messaging them like, are you guys like fans of the book? Or even some people I know who work like within the television industry. I'm like, are you working on the show? Because, you know, I'm obsessed and I just want to stalk. And no, they were all legitimate Fourth Wing fans, women and men. Like, it's amazing to see people kind of dive into a series like this in our adult age. Like, this is the millennial second coming of Harry Potter, it feels like.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys in a non-spoiler way what your favorite thing about the book was?
Okay,
I'll go. I really like how Rebecca Yarros balanced like storytelling and romance and action. And I'll say like coming off of A Court of Thorn and Roses, which I love, but sometimes I'm like, girl, I don't need another chapter of smut. Get me back into the plot. And then with like Red Queen is way too military for me. Like it's far too military strategy. And I like got lost and bored in the war. I really like how in Fourth Wing, like we get the plot, we get character development, we get the war, and we get some sexy times. Like everything's very well balanced in the storytelling you need.
Absolutely. Her world building is really good because sometimes if it's not, I can't see it and then I check out. And whether I was reading it or whether I was listening to it, I knew the world. I understood the characters. I understood the hierarchy and the stakes the whole time. Now, this is my own brain that has an issue. Fight scenes in general are hard for me to put together. But there were definitely a few moments towards the end that I saw perfectly. And so for me to say that is a big deal.
For me, I love the world she built. I love that it gave me a little bit of all the kind of little fandoms that I fell in love with in life. You know, it's got tones of Divergent or Hunger Games, Harry Potter, you know, there's magic. It's super fun. There's a love story. We gotta love it. There's disability representation. Can we talk about that? Like, I have not met a series that, you know, talks about a main character that lives with a disability and how it is dealing with chronic pain and kind of just navigating the world and life with it. And, you know, she didn't make her weak. Like, that's what's so awesome, because to deal with chronic pain and to live with chronic pain, like, you are such a strong person. Your threshold is unimaginable, you know, because what you feel like on a daily is already worse than what a normal person feels like. And you still navigate the same day as everyone else with it. And I loved how she built Violet. I became obsessed with a character who was so strong and not just like obsessed with boys, you know?
Yeah.
Just a genuinely good human being.
Even though the boy obsessed is my favorite trope, which is enemies to lovers. And I was like, yes. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. It's fine. It's fine. So let's talk about the story, like the world a little bit and like what this is. So there has been a giant civil war, right? And correct me if I get things wrong, because, you know, my brain, I write things down and then I forget. There's been a giant civil war. There are generals of the rebels that have been murdered, but their children are alive and thrown into this school. And the school is kind of, for a lack of a better description, similar to Harry Potter in that they get sorted into factions, into places that they're going to be, whether it's scribes, dragon riders,
healers. I don't remember what the fourth one is, but yeah, there's four different things.
There's 4 different things. And so Violet, her mother is basically the president, right? So, and her sister is a dragon rider. And if they're not in the same year, they're not in the same place, they are not allowed to speak to each other. And so she, her entire life, thought she was going to be a scribe. Her father brought her up as a scribe. Her mother was like, nah, she's going to have to be a dragon rider. She's going to have to be a fighter. And so she's thrown into this world that she wasn't quite ready for. And I really love that, because I also love a fish out of water. I love that she doesn't lose how smart she is. And in a way, it makes her better at the position, even if she's not physically ready to be there.
Agreed. I really like how she brought her skills as a scribe to everything that she did. And I think the more that we get into the plot, like the more that we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. But it just, that different skill set made her a better writer ultimately. And I thought it was really interesting to see her like play to her own strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It did. I did think that was really awesome, especially because it shows like strength in multiple parallels. Like, there's mental strength and then there's physical strength. And she has a great way of weaving both of them together in this character.
And we meet Xaden, who is, how do we describe Xaden? He will become her boss, but he's also hot. I do love when she's describing him. She spends like 100 years on his mouth, and I just cackled. I thought that was really funny. I was like, me too, girl. Me too,
girl.
But he's like the child of someone her mother had murdered, right? Of one of the rebels. So like these rebel students don't like her. And the next crazy thing is at this school, they can kill each other. So Violet has a huge like bullseye on her back of the people that are the rebel children that don't want her there. I'm like, there's so many layers to this.
Yeah. There's also the layer in the aspect that when it comes to these rebel children, this is their only way at like into this world, you know? They were all ripped from their parents were murdered, and the only way they get to keep their life and kind of raise themselves in this world is through becoming dragon riders. They have no other choice. They can't be scribes, they can't be healers. Like, this is it for them. So imagine, this is a chosen type of faction section, people choose to join, what they want to be. They choose to test into it. They choose to cross the parapet and become dragon riders, train in school to be a dragon rider.
They might not even pass level 1. It's a little Squid Gamesy.
They might not even make it into the school. You got to walk across a tightrope, basically, into the school. And the way that it starts in this book, it's raining.
Okay, no, hang on, pause, because I want to make a comment about the kids before we get back to the raining parapet thing. Because I have an observation about that. But I think that Violet versus like the rebel children sets up a very interesting foil situation that like they're not necessarily aware of, because everyone else has chosen to go to the school to become a dragon rider, right? The rebel children are basically like drafted. They're in the draft. They don't have a choice. Violet didn't have a choice. And so they've got all this beef against her and like all this like built up, like, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And in her mind, she's like, yo, I don't want to be here either.
She's like, I did not choose this. I would be a scribe. And Dane, her best friend since childhood that they then introduce, is more than happy to constantly remind her.
Don't even get me started on Dane. Now back to the parapet and the rain on the parapet. So we skipped some like beginning stuff, and I feel like this is not a recap show, but I think it's important to say that her mom, like all the dragon riders, get a magical power. And her mom's magical power, if you go back and you think about it, is controlling the weather. So their TikTok theories, because I went down a rabbit hole, that her mom made the storm happen.
Interesting. To make it even harder for her daughter. Like, that's so messed up. Why are her?
Well, I mean, without getting too spoilery, that's what everyone was saying when it was just one book, that her mom did it to make it even harder. Yeah. I always was after hearing that TikTok theory, I was very skeptical that her mom would do that. And I think that her mother was just not in control of her emotions at that moment.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. Because if we think about it, as the book progresses and we learn about signets, emotions do play into them.
Absolutely. And then I was going to say, like, when they get signets, it's when they attach to their dragons, right? So each dragon rider hopefully gets a dragon. It doesn't happen. Some aren't chosen. But then they get signet powers, which I think sound really cool. And I know that we don't know all of them, obviously. It seems like it's infinite what it could possibly be. I was going to ask you guys, like, if you had a signet power, what one would you want?
Oh, that is rough.
I know, right? I even couldn't think about it. Because like when I was learning about everyone's, whether it's weather, shadows, mind reading, dream walking, I was like, oh my gosh, it could be anything. So I was just wondering if you guys had thought about it. I can't pick one. So
I mean we can teleport things, right?
Yeah, teleportation's one.
Yeah, I would probably do that because I am forgetful as all heck and lazy as SHIT. So I would love to be like, I left my phone on the couch and just be like, bam, it's in my hand, Yeah.
I mean, just being like being put on the spot right now, I feel like the one that I think of is useless, but I want to like command fog, like just to make some fog roll in.
Yeah. I mean, that's helpful though. You can cause car wrecks. You can cause dragon wrecks. Like,
I'm just saying, like, think about I'm getting into an argument with my man and he starts getting on my nerves and I'm like, you know what? You can't see me. Fog.
That just kind of makes me think of, so we learned that Xaden has a shadow wheeling thing. And I know when she's describing it, it's supposed to be super cool, but my brain just went straight to Dr. Facilier.
That's what I saw too. Like, definitely saw the shadow man.
The shadow man. He's got friends on the other side, especially like during their confrontation and his shadows are pulling daggers from the tree and like things like that. I was like, it's Dr. Facilier.
You're wild. I did not see that.
Jordan and I, same page. She was like, yeah, it's definitely Shadow Man.
You know what? I watch a lot of anime, I think. So I just saw
I know what
you anime stuff.
Yeah, I know exactly.
You can do real anime stuff. That's what I saw.
My brain goes straight to Disney. And we learn all about these dragons. And a thing that we learn about Violet is that her brother passed away during a battle confrontation with these Griffin Riders or whatever. There's like this black dragon that has never picked someone since then that like died trying to save him and I couldn't. And so like there's a lot of guilt and things that follow her in this whole thing and add to the layers of everyone disliking her because they're like, oh, your brother was so special. Oh, the dragons are so special. People are willing to kill themselves for people in your family and your family's garbage.
Yeah. And you know, her sister Mira also is like, has a really cool signet that's also, and she is a great writer as well. So she kind of just has this like legacy that she's just thrown into. And especially in a world where she did not want that legacy. Like she rather would have followed her father's path.
And be a scribe.
Yeah. Who has passed away. And now she's kind of got to walk her mother's path, her sister's path, her brother's path. And that's scary for her.
Absolutely. And then we get into these fight classes and I like, cause they all have to learn how to fight. They all learn sparring. And I love that she's trying to like wield respect and not just show that she's a liability. And because they can kill each other, which is still crazy to me, she's so smart and she just starts poisoning everybody.
That was one of my favorite parts of the book where it's like she's using her brain. Like none of this is against the rules. It's very intelligent. And I love how like everyone is so focused on one type of strength that Xaden is the only person who catches her. And he's finally like, will you knock it off with the poison, bro?
Yeah. He's like, you got to spar with me now. And I'm like, yes, she does. No. And when she screams, I am not attracted to toxic men. I said, yes, ma'am. My mantra, I will say it over and over again and it'll never be true.
I'll say it until I believe it.
What is wrong with all of us women?
Like,
somebody fixes it. It's got to be like a nature versus nurture thing.
I'll blame it on generational
like,
trauma.
I want a nice guy, but then we're like, that meathead just offended me. I love him.
And he gives her a nickname, which is Violence, which I love. I think it's perfect. It's not like Pigeon or Spider Monkey.
Or Daisy or Spider Monkey. You know, these books pick like the most goofy names for pet names for girls.
Mm-hmm. But I like Violence. I think Violence is great.
It's awesome, especially for someone who like, you know, everyone is looking at as weak. It's so, because the thing about Violet and something that they mentioned in the very beginning is that her hair fades into a silvery white. You know, and that's how they know that she's been sick before. And it's like a sign that, you know, she's kind of been through it. And it's a mark on her. It lets everyone know that she's kind of weak. And for Xaden to look at someone who is like, what, all of 5 foot tall with hair like that and be like, I don't know, this girl has something about her. I'm going to call her Violence. Like, that's cool. That's nice. That's like someone believing in you before they see anything about you.
Exactly. Especially when she has someone like Dane that I brought up a little bit earlier, who has known her whole life and the entire time is telling her she can't do it. She's not strong enough. She needs to leave. She's going to be killed. And I'm like, I'm glad that eventually she got to the point where she snapped at him. And I was so happy about that because I'm sorry, no one believes in her. At some point you need to. And then she has Xaden who doesn't know her, like what you were saying, Keiki, who sees this in her and a strength in her and believes in her and builds her up. And he's someone who should hate her.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's like the leader in Xaden and him, you know, being responsible for like 700 other souls, knowing that like anyone can make it happen, or himself making it happen, or if it's, you know, something to do with like a power or something he has. But I think it's kind of a mark on a character that only further makes you like them.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand if there's ever gonna, like, maybe we were setting up a love triangle between these two men and it was supposed to be seen that way. I never gave Dane a chance.
Not once.
Tita and Gail's story. Like,
Dane got on my last nerve, particularly because of what you hit on, Sarah, is that he is the kind of person that does not allow someone else to change. And I will say from personal experience, it is so frustrating when you are putting in the work, doing your best to like become a new, better version of you, and someone keeps trying to drag you down and back to that person that you used to be.
Yeah.
He did not allow her the grace to change, to try and prove herself, to grow into it. He was just like, no, I know you, and I know you suck. Goodbye.
Right. You're going to die. Okay, bye. Like, no. He drove me crazy the whole time. I haven't fortunately come across a pro Dane video, but I don't know how anyone could be pro Dane. No. Especially when you eventually get to the end of the book. But even at this point, where it's literally just set up before we even get with dragons, literally just classes.
Yeah. And also let's mention that it is mentioned at this point in the book, if we're still in the beginning, that Violet has always kind of had a thing for Dane. This is someone that she's wanted to be into her, you know, imagined a bigger relationship with. And the book further pushes her and us away from him. It's wild.
Yeah, I agree. And then especially because they get to like this point where there's a gauntlet and she has to figure out, because she's not strong, but she's smart. And he's telling her, still, you're going to die. You're not going to make it. And then she does. And this is one of the things I was actually able to see, because like I said, fighting and things like this are hard for me. But also I think it's because I love Mulan. And the whole time I just was like, let's get down to business. And with her daggers, you know, the part of Mulan where she like can't do it and she like shoots the arrows and eventually makes it to the top. Like that's what was going on in my brain during that whole final gauntlet with the knives and like cheating, but not cheating. She just was outsmarting it. I'm like, it's Mulan. That's right.
Yeah. Now that you bring it up, it is very Mulan.
Look, this book gets all of my favorite fantasies. This is what it is. It is what it is. It hits all of them. Let's talk threshing, which is the day they bond with their dragons.
So I actually love the day before threshing when they just like do the dragon catwalk was what it was in my head.
Yes.
All the dragons are lined up and the students go in groups and just walk past all the dragons. Like everyone can at least see each other once. And I love that part because, again, it just shows how smart Violet is, because her sister Mira has given her the special armor that is made out of dragon scales that she shrunk down. And so Violet's been using it. It's been saving her life. And when they're doing the dragon catwalk, like a couple of the dragons like walk right up to Violet and just start smelling her like they're dogs. And instead of freaking out, she's like, oh my God, you can smell my sister's dragon. Like, yeah, I'm Violet. Mira helped me out. Nice to meet you. Hope to be friends someday.
Yeah. And I just love too, because like, don't they like burn someone during this? One of the dragons just like,
kid.
Don't like him. And these aren't
like
small.
His jib. Oof.
And the way they describe them, these are not small dragons. We're talking Drogon. We're talking the biggest of the big from like Game of Thrones, right? We're talking the poor dragon that murked the little one in the latest Game of Thrones.
That's what we're talking for sure.
So they're not like cute. They're not like Dragon Tales. They are not like, Elliot from Pete's Dragon.
I kept thinking about, and this is going to date me and what a nerd I am, the movie Dragonheart from the 90s with Sean Connery.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that. But I thought about How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, but Toothless is cute, though.
Toothless is cute and tiny. These big boys.
I know, but when I think of Andarna, I think of someone like Toothless.
Okay, we're getting there. We getting there. Talk about the threshing.
Yeah, so the threshing, Violet's walking around and she sees, so she has enemies, obviously, and these three boys that were going to try and murder the small dragon because they're trying to like prune the herd, kill the runt kind of a thing. And she's like, that's not going to happen. So she starts fighting them off. And then out, and of course, Xaden's watching from the woods, worried about his not girlfriend. But the rules are he can't step in. And then the biggest, blackest dragon rolls up who has not partnered with anyone in years.
And this is how we meet her dragon, Taryn, who quickly becomes my favorite character.
Taryn is amazing. But also the little baby dragon that they were trying to murk is Andarna, who is just, I imagine her actually very cute and sweet with like a little square nose covered in feathers. She has paws because she's not old enough yet to have claws. And I'm just like, why is she's like a My Little Pony dragon to me.
Yes, with like big shiny gold eyes. Like she's just a baby.
This is another place, though, where I was so impressed with Yaros's writing, right? Because I hate really obvious foreshadowing. Like, it's just a thing. I studied a lot of writing, went to a lot of school. And so when the foreshadowing is too obvious for me, it's a turnoff. And so I legitimately was reading Fourth Wing, and we get to the part where we first learn about Taryn before they name him, but they're talking about how he's not haven't partnered with anyone and how he knew her brother and blah, blah, blah. And I looked up from the book and I look at my mom who has no clue what's going on. And I was like, I hate when a book foreshadows something, because I was like, okay, great. So Violet's going to bond with Taryn. Like, thanks for spoiling your own book. But then several hundred pages later, I'm like, oh my God, I was wrong. I'm surprised now because Violet gets not one, but two dragons. Who saw that coming?
No one.
No one. I did not see it. I did not think at all. They didn't make it seem like it was possible. No one's ever had two dragons.
Yeah, I remember when Keiki got to that part in the book, because as we said, she read it first. She comes out, she goes, she gets two dragons. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But she was so excited. Like,
I love
the way that it happens, because Taryn is like, you're mine. And Adarna is like, I'm coming too.
Because she's the cutest. And I love her so much. Every time Andarna speaks, because I listened to the audiobook, and like the voice they did for her was really good, and it was very cute and sweet. I love her. I love her. But then the kicker is of this whole thing, because while yes, Violet gets two dragons, it's very cool. It was a whole thing. They had to have like a whole dragon meeting about it. And then whatever the dragons say, go, because they're the dragons, is how this works. When you are paired with a dragon, you can hear their thoughts. They can hear your thoughts. And what we have now learned is that Taryn is partnered with Xaden's dragon. And if the dragons are partnered, you are now partners. Whether it's friendship, romantic, it doesn't matter. They can't be far apart from each other for more than a couple days. They are like penguins. They're lobsters. They mate for life. Mm-hmm. And if one of them dies, the other one dies. They like die of broken hearts, a la The Notebook, which is kind of amazing and awful at the same time, because now they have to be around each other, and he has to protect her, because Taryn is like, well, now you have to help her because she's mine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This was like the equivalent of emotional bed sharing. Like, I don't know what the name of this trope is, but when they're forced to be next to each other, and I love that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is my enemies to lovers. Like, it's great. But he already loved her. It's fine. When I realized that Taryn was Xaden's dragon mate, I literally cackled out loud, because I was like, of course it is, and this couldn't be any better. I paused the book. I had a giggle. And then I was like, let's keep going. Because this is a book that, like, all of this world building we're talking about, like, is probably a half of it. And it really flies. Like, this doesn't feel like a slog or a drudge, to get through.
No. This book is so long, but I finished it in about 3 days. And I mean, that's not 3 days of like reading from sun up to sundown. That's like, I still had to run errands and do my job and like be a present family member and friend.
The only reason it took me a week is because I set timers for myself, and I will leave a book and put it down rather than sacrifice sleep and have bags and not be beautiful for the rest of my life. Yeah. But I would have finished it like I did when I was a little kid, just read day and night if I didn't have a job, didn't have anything to do, any responsibilities, and would have woke up when the sun rose, like, and I did it.
Another cool detail to her bonding with the dragon is they literally like brand them, and she gets like this gorgeous black dragon tattoo on her back and like a little golden Darna like thrown in there. And she's like, I hope you like it. She's so cute. She's like, sparkle for me. She's the cutest. And then when she's still alive, has her 2 dragons, also bonding with a dragon doesn't mean she's safe. The other cadets can still like murder her. Dane kisses her, and I screamed so loud because I hated it so much. And then I was so relieved to find out she hates it too.
Mm-hmm.
I loved this part because I feel like it is so rare in a book for an author to describe what it feels like when you get the ick.
Yes.
But we have all been there. We have all liked someone, like been all about them, wanted them so badly, and then they do something and you realize, oh no, this person gives me the ick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of sad that it was a kiss because, like, as Keiki brought up earlier, she wanted this. She thought Dane was going to be like the love of her life if they got together. And then she kisses him, and it's like kissing a cousin. She's like, oh,
I know. She was
just gets the ick so hard.
Mm-hmm.
She was just as disgusted as we've all been before. We've all had that experience.
It's so true, though.
Boy and girl, I would like to say, you know, where we all build relationships in our head and characters.
Call me out, Keiki.
You know, you fall in love with potential. Dane has been there for her whole life. They were best friends. You know, he's handsome and strong and good to her and her family. She fell in love with his potential, and he constantly tore her down once she got to this space.
Yep.
And that just shows you that once you get to know someone on a different emotional level, it really can just like break all that attraction. Good lesson for the younger people who may not have been there, who might pick up this book.
Yeah.
Because it is very viral. That, you know, there are multiple levels to attraction, and the ick is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. You can be in love with someone and brush off their red flags and bad behavior, like him not believing in her and like him constantly being overprotective and overbearing, and you can brush it off as like he's just trying to make sure she stays safe and alive. But I just can't be cool with that. Like I can't. If she had liked it and they started a relationship, I would have been really upset.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have been pissed.
So I'm really
that would have made me want to put the book down if she had actually gone with Dane.
Facts. No, I don't like it.
No, I don't like it.
And then I wrote this note that says, the more Violet looks at and talks about Xaden, the more I'm convinced he's based on War and Peace from Sky High. Because of how she described it. It's true. It's where my brain goes, guys. This is where we're at.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, Sarah.
It's fine. Now we're getting into flight lessons, and she is like so crazy. So when she did the gauntlet, she really injured herself. She's like rolled an ankle. She's like in that battle, she like hurt her arm. The guy sliced her, you know, when she's trying to protect Indarna. And I just love that Taryn is willing to like let her fall and to scare her, because it's almost like having a toddler, right? So she's not strong enough to hold herself in due to injuries and other things. And so he's using part of his own magic to keep her in the seat. And she's screaming at him to stop. And he's like, okay. And then she just goes, and falls. And of course he catches her, but he doesn't have to. And I love the rules of the dragons, because it's like, you fall off. I didn't really like you. Sorry about it. Well,
I also like that Taryn constantly calls to the fact that like me holding you in your seat, that is such a small amount of a power drain for me. Like, I am all powerful, Taryn. I'll tell you if it's an issue. It's not an issue. Yeah. Like, I chose you. Act right. You know, I'm not going to make this easy.
That's what I love. I love that he constantly reminds her, like, I chose you for a reason. Live up to your potential. I know how great you can be. Actually do it. I'm like, Taryn has like the most grumpy old man energy, and I just love it to death. He's probably my favorite character. He's so funny. And he's like Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon as a dragon. Like, the only thing he doesn't say is, I'm getting too old for this shit.
It's so true. I love it. Also, like, girl, just like let him help you until you're healed. There's no shame in that.
Or just, you know, just sometimes getting thrown into the deep end is how you learn. My grandpa was determined to make sure he taught us all how to drive before he passed away. He was, in his 80s when I was in high school. And this man threw us on the freeway on day one. That was terrifying. Terrifying. Yeah. But you know what? Sink or swim. He was willing to let us all die that day.
You could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
It is so scary.
But it's true though.
But I learned. I've never been in an accident.
She's like, I learned today.
I learned today.
We have to talk about the scene where Violet is sleeping and the boys come to attack her. And then Zaddy Zane comes to the rescue.
Well, and okay, pause, because you are leaving out an important part. It is not just the boys who come to attack her. There's also a female cadet who was one of Dane's best friends. She's an honorable girl. And this quote unquote honorable girl comes in. She's the one who unlocks the door so the guys can get into her room. And part of their code of conduct is even though murder is on the table, not when a cadet is sleeping.
Exactly. Not when you're sleeping.
It has to be a fair fight. And clearly attacking someone when they're asleep is not a fair fight.
Mm-hmm.
And Violet is doing her best, but it's 4 of them plus that girl. She ain't gonna make it.
No. But Xaden rolls up and kills all of them without even a blink, a second thought. He's not playing these games today.
Hey,
well, he has a little bit of a thought because you're skipping over one of Violet's signets manifests. It's the power that she got from Andarna, and we find out that she can fucking stop time.
Yeah,
out of this world,
which is amazing.
Amazing, super secret power. We end up learning that Xaden got there because Taryn told him, and that her dragon can talk to Xaden
because they're all connected.
It's just amazing because there's this deeper level of connection and understanding they're going to have with each other.
Yeah.
And this is another part where you start to see how much Xaden truly cares about her and what's the best for her. Because the second he realizes what happened, he's no one ever hears about you stopping time. That's too big of a deal. It's too dangerous. If they would kill you for it, they'll kill Andarna for it. This puts you in so much danger. It never happened. We're not talking about it ever again.
Yeah, because what we learn after she does that is we learn that Andarna isn't a golden dragon. She's actually a feathertail. She's only 2 years old, and they don't bond with ones that are that young because humans can actually steal their powers and it will kill the dragon and burn them out. And then they'd have that forever. So they're we don't want that to happen. We don't want anyone to kill you, to kill her. That's a huge, 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 huge secret.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they do confront the whole thing about, what was her name? Amber was the girl who let her in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dane doesn't believe her and then tries to, I consider it assault when he because Dane can see memories and he just literally has to touch you. Doesn't have to have permission. And he's literally let me just touch you to see. And I'm you can't.
Right. This is where it goes from the ick to you are an enemy because first of all, he just, again, does not believe Violet, doesn't let this girl tell her own story. Doesn't believe Violet, is in opposition to her again, and is then I will get the truth out of you. Let me touch you.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. And she's absolutely not. And then that girl is killed.
No, let's talk about how she was killed, though. Her dragon shared her damn memory with everyone. Yeah. Everyone saw it. And Dane was embarrassed, which he should be, but he also should have listened to her and believed her. And I am so glad they killed that girl. And I'm so glad that Taryn did that because it adds another level of power to her. Mm-hmm. Violet is not someone to be trifled with. She has the strongest dragon for a reason.
And now because Xaden is worried about her safety, he gets a buddy of his, Liam, who I love. I loved Liam a lot. To be basically her bodyguard. And when talking with Liam, she learns a lot of things that she grew up with aren't true. Whether it's the war and the rebellion and what happened, that she doesn't even know a piece of the story, let alone the full story, learning things from him. And I think that's important because as a scribe, the whole thing is whoever wins, right? The winners write the history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, as far as what you're saying with foreshadowing, Jordan, we're starting to learn the unraveling of what we're told is the truth in this conversation.
Liam has, y'all know those TikTok videos where they're like bisexual husband energy. And it's not that the husband is bisexual, but he's the husband of a bisexual woman. So he's like the biggest ally and supporter and like golden retriever boy. Liam is a bisexual husband.
There was a point where I thought that Liam was going to fall in love with her and then there would be like a love triangle in that way. But I'm also glad it didn't go that direction.
No, it was just big bi husband energy. He just wanted to support his besties. And I love that for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then there's a moment where we learn not only are the dragons and Xaden and Violet connected mentally, but when the dragons are getting it on, Violet and Xaden want nothing more than to also get it on with each other or anything that breathes. And I loved this whole scene. She's like, what is going on with me? Because she doesn't know. And like she rolls up to Xaden and he's like, oh, this is what's happening. You gotta learn to turn it off. Just gotta turn it off.
Why you left an important part. He's outside smoking. He's like ripping on his bong and he's like, you just gotta turn it off, man. Take a hit.
Exactly. He's getting high. He's like, I don't care if it's illegal. This is the way you get through it, girl.
Yeah. Like you just gotta do it. And like he kind of teaches her how to close the door. And he's like wildly impressed that she does it immediately because it takes a lot of other people months, if not years, to figure out how to do that. And then they start like making out. And then Xaden, being the stand-up gentleman that he is like, no, not like this. Not when you're not in your right mind.
I know. We love a consent king. We love a consent. We love consent. Yeah. So he was like, you need to leave.
Like, you gotta go because I'm strong, but I'm not that strong. And then the final like test of the task of this book is, I called it the Quidditch game because they have to earn points. They're both all given a task and they have to figure out, it's something like they have to figure out how they would win a war or something like that, right? And so
war games. Which, like, war games is a pretty standard thing in like armies or like fantasy, like military fantasy novels, where like it's literally a fake war that you're put up against your own like other like members of your platoon or whatever.
And so because she's the general's daughter, president's daughter, she's like, we're going to steal a map from my mom's office. And I'm like, this is great.
I love that part because again, it was so smart and so funny because I think like the task is like they're given, I forget exactly how they worded it in the book, but like something that like nobody else will get or whatever. And she's like, yeah, nobody else can get this. Who else is gonna be able to figure out how to get my mom's office and get out without being detected?
Me.
Me.
And it's so smart. And then because of this, like she has a reunion with her sister because like all the people that are higher up come down for this final war games. And I love that her sister's like, oh my God, you're alive. Like, cause like no one thought she was going to make it this far. And I just like, at least it was like a breath of fresh air, like so proud of you and not just, well, never thought you'd make it here, you know? Dane, garbage.
But also think of like how hard it is to shield that out too. Like, you know, it's like leaving a refugee camp. You're like, I'm going to make my life in a different place in this world and we can't go together. If you make it out too, hopefully I'll see you.
I can't believe somehow I skipped over this. I think it was when I was like toxic, won't fall for toxic men. I didn't write down that spar match was the thing with the daggers where he was just like removing each
dagger. My God.
Sexy.
Talk about it, one of the sexiest non-sex scenes I've ever read in my life.
It was so good.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. I'm so sorry, listeners. You probably heard me start to bring it up and then be like, they didn't talk about it.
There's like a bunch of things that we've had to skip over, I think, for the sake of time. Because I also, when you talk about her seeing Mira again, I was thinking about the character of Rhiannon, who I love. I think Rhiannon's just a really good, solid
friend. Yeah.
And I love that when they oh wait, that's coming up. I lied. But when they eventually when they win the task because they got the information out of her mom's office, their quote unquote prize is to go to a working base. I love that during part of going to the working base, they like sneak off and go see Rhiannon's family because they can't see their families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't even write down Rhiannon, but like Rhiannon's such a great best friend character and every person needs a best friend. Xaden's is obviously Liam and hers is Rhiannon. And I love like every time she talked about Dane, like she's there for her, but then she talks about Xaden and she's like, no, Xaden. Like she's the best hype girl that you
yes.
Girl, tell me about it. Cause like that's just what it's like, when you're like, but he is good looking though. There's also a scene where like he's sparring with like, I can't even imagine his name right now.
Arlo.
Yeah. He's sparring with another guy and like the girls just stop what they're doing to stare. And I was like, this is such feral girl energy because you will be talking to your friends and then like attractive people walk by and you all turn and look. And then, or you stop talking and they're like, what, boy? And you're like, Like, you can't help it. Like men and women look at each other. We are just the same. It's just that men catcall, which is terrible. We catcall in our brain. We respect.
Yeah. We leave the window rolled up.
We can leave the window rolled up.
And we just do it for ourselves.
Brianna's just a really cool, fully fleshed out character, and I love that. And I feel like when this is adapted into a TV show, she could definitely have her own like subplots and whatnot. And I like that. I keep thinking about Jessica from Twilight, where like the most one-dimensional, you don't know a jack shit about her, besides the fact that she was played by Anna Kendrick in the movie. Like such a nothing character. And I love that we didn't have that here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Xaden is one of the best male characters I've read in a long time because they didn't just give him like a my family died story. You have sympathy for me. They also gave him a lot more depth and personality that I think is necessary to fall in love with a character like this. Like his level of pettiness, I feel is only matched by like Lestat. Because like because like when she's trying
but
to
at
like
least his is justified. Lestat's just Lestat.
Exactly. But like when she's trying to run drills with her sister and like he's in her head and like messing with her, I'm just sitting there giggling because it's just really fun. Because like also like the messing with her brings her joy. Like it brings lightness to the dark that they are all dealing with. Was there anything else that you would like to discuss before we get into the Griffins? Because most of my notes I did while driving. So like if I skip things, please tell me that you find are important to talk about.
And listeners, please, this is one of those episodes. Make sure that you write us questions, comments, concerns, so we can get to them when we talk about part 2. Because I think we all want to talk about this series so much more.
So much more. I heard a girl, because we went to the party to pick up Kiki's book, and these girls were like, yeah, we had like a 3.5-hour conversation one day. And I was like, easily could do.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
The party, hello.
Tell me. I don't remember.
So there's this big party that's thrown after. And, you've got all the generals there. And of course, all these kids have to show up and look the people in the face who killed their parents, and Violet's just like, where's my man? Where's Xaden? And she rushes out to find him.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's later. That's not.
That's way later. They're at the base still, girl, and we're about to meet the Griffins.
Yeah, because I have the Griffins come to attack while they're with her sister. And she has to leave Rhiannon. She's making out with Xaden. I hate you for this. And forces her to leave her friends and her sister. That's what I wrote down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what does that mean? Does anyone remember?
I feel like this is where the stakes get raised because the stakes have been high as far as like school is concerned, right?
Right.
And before this point, it feels very like the most parallel I have, I think, is probably like Harry Potter. It's like they're going to class and they're doing all these things, and it's very serious in a very scholastic way. But then when we're at this base with her sister and the Griffins actually attack and they have to like evacuate this base before actual like war scrimmage happens, that's when you're like, well, it's not just about school. Like we are in the middle of an active war. Mm-hmm. When Xaden graduates, he is going to go join this active war. Like Violet's whole schooling could be turned upside down because of this very active war that we are currently in the middle of.
And you easily forget because of everything that's just been going on school-wise, for sure.
Yeah. In a way, Basgiath, is that what it's called? The War College?
Yeah.
It's very much its own island, isolated, protected from everything that's happening within this realm. And this is her first like actual injection into it and like seeing what it is.
But fortunately, at the end of the fight, Mira survives. Her sister's alive. And then I get a little lost because battle scenes. But Xaden gets her like a new fancy saddle to help keep her in her dragon, because we all know she likes to fall out. Liam gets stabbed what's his name? Like Zach Barlow. Anyone with the last name Barlow, we know how I feel. And when he stabs him, she uses Andarna's power to save him from falling. And then we also see her wield lightning. So because she's got 2 dragons, we now learn that she's got 2 signets, which was going to have to come, but no one knew what it was, because you don't know what your signet is until it happens. And I love the fact that she can do lightning. I think that's a really, really cool one.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how I would use it, and I'm glad that I don't have that temptation, because I'd probably be zapping people left and right.
Can you imagine? You're like, no, like Zeus on crack. Like that's
exactly. Zap.
Zap. Imagine me in traffic. Oh my
That's what I'm saying.
But this leads to her first death, is she actually kills Jake Barlow. And she is very much,
right?
Huh?
Isn't it Jack?
Jack. I think it's Jack.
Listen,
Jack.
I don't know what his name was, but the second he died, I was sitting there like I was in Chicago. He had it coming. He had it coming.
Facts. Because this guy has been after her since she stepped foot in the school. And like Dane does nothing and just tries to like get her to hide away. And Xaden like is a slap of reality. He's like, that's not how this is going to work. People die. We kill people. This isn't your fault. You were protecting your friend. He would have come for you. And like, it just shows different levels of emotional maturity and knowledge, I feel like, between the two of them. Just continue
he's
to come up,
Xaden. Widely aware that we're in a war, man. He understands, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Violet's very much been in her little protective bubble, like all the people of where she's from.
Yeah.
She's not a refugee like these rebel kids, you know?
Well, and it was a big deal for her because up until this point, she has tried so hard not to kill someone. She was poisoning her opponents as opposed to, like, part of it was that she wasn't strong enough to fight them. The other part was that she would poison them just enough to make them sick, not to kill them. And like every time, even in sparring, even at the threshing, she would stop right before that point. And so this is like the point of, honestly, no return for her, where it's like, if you're going to be a warrior and be a cadet and be a dragon rider, this is what it takes.
Yeah. And this leads to Xaden coming to her room to comfort her. She kisses him and he's like, I'm the last thing that you need. And I said, sir, that is just heroin for women like us. Please don't say things like that. And then he's like, I don't want to take advantage of you when you've had a bad day. And she's like, take advantage of me. And then we learn that he's like really good at finger banging.
This was the ultimate comfort. He came to comfort her, and boy howdy.
Boy howdy her. And we also learned that they both take birth control. In this world, men and women take it. I'm like, what a fun little fact. Thank you for that after this.
How responsible. I love that.
Yeah. And then we learned so much more about Xaden after that. But also, as for people who read smut, I don't really read a lot of it. This is really like a semi-intro to it for me. How did what was the finger banging situation for you guys? Was it good? Was it decent? I don't know. I was happy with it.
I read a lot of smut, and the smut in this book was very well written. There's a lot of smut that just gives me the ick because it's so poorly written, or they use like really bad slang terminology for body parts, or like the dirty talk is just very stilted. And there was none of that here. Like Rebecca Yarros knows she is, I don't want to say anything about her that's offensive, but I kind of want to say she's been on the block, okay? She knows what's up when it comes to writing smut.
Hey, she's read it, written it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's experience. It's not icky. It's not niche in any way. It's literally just two people having sex.
Having a moment.
It's good. It's fine. You know, she built up to it. So we appreciated it. We were all like, I hope they fuck in this book. Like, I didn't know that.
At this point, it was just like the dagger scene and then this scene, like the makeout scene. And now there's like the fingering scene. And it's like, is it going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But not until.
I've read plenty of like different books where it's just like soft romance or like that cut to black type of romance. Like, they didn't have to give us anything. So like, yeah, she gave us a sex scene. God bless. We were waiting for one.
We're waiting. And I was happy with it. And then of course, before they actually sleep together, we have to learn more about Xaden and what a good human being he is.
Exactly. We got to fall in love with who he is before, you just throw people into bed with each other, which is always the worst.
Yeah, because we learned too that like he made a deal to keep all the other rebel children alive, and it's literally on him and the deal he made for them. And you're just like, why would he do that? Like, why take that upon himself? And he just felt like he had to. And I was like, that takes a very specific person.
It's so much responsibility for a child, but at the same time, you realize like all the adults in his life have just been murdered. Like they've all been killed. And so I think in his adolescent mind, it was, I can take responsibility for all of us and cut this deal, or we all possibly die the way that our parents did. I guess I'm going to cut the deal. Yeah. Which again takes a very certain kind of strength. Like I'm not saying that's not strong at all, but it's a very adolescent way of thinking. It just proves how immature like General Sorrengail and all the other adults in the situation were.
Exactly. And then we get to a part where like Violet finds a note from her father about about not erasing the truth and how the truth gets, mangled. And I'm just like, look at her dropping more notes so that Violet can put it together, that what she knows isn't real. Because there's tons of lore, tons of stories, tons of everything that are supposed to be true. People that don't exist anymore, people that never existed, that she's going to find out a hard truth about towards the end. And I think it's really smart the way it's done.
Yeah. And I appreciate like Rebecca Yarros for that type of foreshadowing because when from the jump, when Violet is packing her pack to go, into Basgiath, she's trying to bring books. Like her sister's like, you have to carry this across a small line on your back. Yeah. Like thousands of feet into the air. Absolutely not. And starts throwing all her books out. And there's, a children's book that she is partial to, that she knows front to back. She reads often because her father gave it to her. And you will later learn that her father wasn't just like giving her a fairy tale book, but like instilling actual like knowledge.
And as they're getting ready for these things, like Xaden and her are bonding more and more. And he's like, he just keeps saying those like very tropey things of like, don't fall for me. I'm not good for you. Blur, blur, blur. And like, we know that that's kryptonite, sir. And they're like, we're not going to be together. And then what happens?
Be together.
They're together. And we have that. We have the actual sex scene.
Ayo.
Ayo, which I thought was also done very, very well because as we know, they're in each other's minds and can show each other things and tell each other things. And I'm just like, what a nice added layer to this.
So sexy.
And I mean, even the aftermath of it, it's like,
she's like blowing shit out with her lightning.
You're like, she took out a window. She took out a dresser. Like, you're just like, whoa.
It's so good.
It was actually explosive.
Yeah. So then the next day, the war games are slightly interrupted and Dane figures out about the two of them. And I just laugh because he can die in a fire. And they're all assigned like to go to different places. And they're like, are these real war games? Is the war happening? And everything's very like wishy-washy, right? And Xaden is like, well, she has to come with me because of our dragons. And Dane kind of loses it and like touches her face and does all these things that are really not okay. And so they end up, what is it called? Not like a fort, but something kind of like a fort.
Like a fort. I don't know what it's called.
We're gonna call it a fort. We are gonna call it a fort. And they're like taking a breather and they made it to where they need to go. And then Griffin riders roll up and interrupting a moment between Xaden and Violet. And this is when everything that we know to be true is flipped on its head. And Xaden's like begging. He's like, you've never ever trusted me before. This is when I need you to trust me now. And I'm like, dun, 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 as I'm like listening to this happen. So I was like, oh, here we go. Because they have to have something blow up all the happy, right? So apparently we now learn that Xaden has been helping the people that are supposed to be the enemy. And he's giving them weapons. He's, helping protect them, because we are now learning that Venin are real. And Venin are these mythical characters and creatures that were part of the book that Violet's father gave her. They're not supposed to be real. They're supposed to be completely fictional and or eradicated. And that is just not the case. And so she starts panicking. She thinks that her entire squad is a squad of traitors because they all knew what was going on and she was the only one left out. And I just want to know, because I personally think once a lot of this information comes to light and she learns that everything she thought was true was false, I feel like she's completely overreacting with her anger and hatred towards Xaden and the others.
Well, this, I think, drives home the point that she is, an immature adolescent, because, she definitely overreacts.
Okay, I'm glad it's not just me. I was like, girl, why are we overreacting like this? Be mad you're pointing your anger at the wrong people. Be mad at your mother. Be mad possibly at your sister. Be mad possibly at Dane. And speaking of Dane, we learned that Dane knowingly sent her there because of all those casual touches on her face. All he was doing was searching for memories, because they all had a feeling that Xaden and the other rebel children were doing something like this. And they were trying to use her to do that. So when Dane had that visceral reaction to her going with Xaden, it was because he knew she was being sent to her death.
Literally the worst. And he can't even use the excuse like, well, I didn't think they would kill you, because they kill people in this book all the time.
All the time. Every page, I feel like someone new died.
Yeah. He's trash.
Yeah. So not only are the Vernon, whatever, real, the Wyvern are also real, which is like the flying versions of them. So like all of these creatures are horrifying and they're real. And this is the battle that I could kind of see and kind of not see. Because while the Griffin Riders are there, the Venin Wyvern riders roll up and they now have to protect themselves. And Violet learns that while we're told the Griffin Riders are the enemy, they're literally just trying to save themselves from being eradicated by the Wyvern and the Venin, whatever.
I do want to point out that I think although she did overreact, I think it was because at the same time, she was also learning that so many things were true. Like there are still other towns that are out here. Wyvern and Venin exist. Being given a dagger. That looks like my mom's dagger. So then learning my mom knows that these things exist and has never told me. So it's just like the levels of being lied to. That's another reason to be upset. As the kid who gets left out because everyone's like, she's sensitive. I'm like the last to know in the family a lot. That shit makes me so mad. Cause like, I'll cry about it, but I get it done. Strength in a different way, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But also Xaden had an idea that Dane was using her for information. And if he had told her, then they would have that information for sure. Because he never touched any of the others, because he would be killed. But he could betray the girl that's he's supposed to love. So like when she gets the explanation as to why he did not tell her, I think she should have understood, because that's where he's like, how many times has he touched you?
Yeah.
And then she has the realization of how many times he has violated her.
That's why I'm just saying that Taryn needs to incinerate Dane in book number 2.
Please and thank you. Goodbye. Let it happen. So this battle is happening and Liam is still trying to protect her. He sends his dragon after a wyvern that was going to take a chunk out of Taryn. He flips off his dragon, this whole flip around number onto the dragons to kill them. I was like, oh, I can actually see all this happen. And I was really excited about it, because a lot of it I was really confused until that moment. But then the sad thing, because I loved Liam so much, is that Liam dies trying to protect Violet. And his dragon is also dying by the wyvern, and they're just dying together. And she's just trying to get them next to each other so they can die together. And it makes me so sad.
It is like, I don't know, I feel like the Arms of the Angel was playing in my head as this was happening. Like, it's the saddest thing I've read in a while.
The arms of the angel. You're right. Oh, you're right. Sarah McLachlan. It's so sad. So they all like, and the way she like uses her powers and she freezes time again, and like the way they describe her moving lightning, I think is so cool, because it's not just that she can make it happen. She can literally stop it in the sky and point it wherever she wants. And the way that they figure out how to kill the wyvern is to kill the riders. The whole way that the ending fight battle goes down is very cool. And she gets Xaden to trust her because she's like, drop your shadows. And he does it without like really not much hesitation. And I just think that just shows him continuing to prove that he loves her and trusts her.
This whole final battle is going to be so beautiful on film, but also so expensive. Like, if we thought Game of Thrones was expensive, just wait until we get to Fourth Wing with all these CGI dragons, CGI lightning. She's gonna stop time, move the lightning, CGI wyverns. Like, it's gonna be a
yeah, it's gonna be crazy, and especially because it's an Amazon show and they've already showed us that they can't do that well with CGI.
But just like, did show us that they don't spare a budget though, because that Lord of the Rings series is a hell. It's like the most expensive TV show ever at this point.
Also, Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time, also very expensive and beautiful looking. And I will say that as of right now, Michael B. Jordan's production company is the one that has the rights to this. And I trust that man. I trust that man.
Me too.
I feel like because he's beautiful, I hope he picks beautiful people, you know?
Yeah.
You know, has he had a movie that's had an ugly cast? Even his Fahrenheit 451, which was not my favorite. Like, it's a good movie, not a good adaptation, but that's still a real pretty cast.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So good. So at the end of this epicness, Sarah McLachlan battle, she is exhausted and she passes out. And then the final chapter is from
And
Xaden.
she was stabbed.
And she was stabbed.
Yeah.
With like a poison knife that these creatures have. Poison, it's back. And the final chapter is from Xaden's perspective, which I appreciated so that we could kind of know what was going on. But when he rolled up and
I love a perspective change. Like, it gets me every time. And what is it? In the Twilight book, when it's from Jacob's point of view, like, I love a good perspective change.
Switch it. Midnight Sun into it. But when they enter the city that was burnt but not destroyed, because they were always told this one city was destroyed. And he's like, talking to a man saying that he has to save her. And we learned that Violet's brother was a mender. Yeah. I was like, don't fucking tell me her brother is alive. And then the book goes on and you don't quite know yet. And then she wakes up, everything's a little happy, hunky-dory, but not quite. And then her freaking brother is at the door doing the hot guy lean, is like, welcome to the rebellion. And I'm like, how dare you? Because I did not see that coming one bit.
Can I tell you? So I was a bad child and I stayed up late to finish reading this book because I was so close to the end. And I knew, I was like, oh, I should go to bed because I have to like drive to the office tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but you know what? There's like 50 pages left. I'm going to just stay up and finish these 50 pages and then go to bed. And when I got to the fact that it was her brother leaning up against that doorway, I was like, well, how am I supposed to sleep now? How am I sleeping now?
Yeah. I can't even imagine the people who read this book when it first came out, not even knowing the date of when the next book would have been released, because I was pressed. I was like, are you kidding me? I immediately pre-ordered the book, like made sure I had a copy. I looked up the date. It was in my phone because I was like, I have to know what happens next. Like, how dare you? And I
at least we were close in on this one, because I will say my other book like this is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. There are only 2 books in that series. We don't know how many books it's going to be total, I don't think. And when I got to the end of book number 2, I went right on Amazon. I was like, book number 3 better be available for pre-order, because how you going to end a book like this, Sarah?
Mm-hmm. I was very glad that, at least. And that's how I figured out it was 5 books, and then I got upset. Anyway.
Harry Potter was 7.
I know, but again, I knew going into those books that they were series. I went into this book thinking it was just a book, especially with an ending and an epic battle. I was just like, and they could do one of those fast forward chapters where it's like, and we together and the world ends, not
no, girl.
welcome
we
to the
this
rebellion
war all the way through. We gonna see her graduate school and see this war all the way through.
Oh, I don't even think she's gonna graduate. I think she's done with school.
She's gonna graduate. I mean, that's on the
valid.
Table.
How do you go back? You were literally sent to die by your own mother, first of all, by your own mama.
Yeah, she's a part of the rebellion now. How is she gonna go back?
How does she go back to school? We made it. FYI, these creatures that were supposed to be fantasy are actually real.
Gotcha, suckers.
Gotcha. Do we just come back and be like, we found the box. Here's our flag. You know what I mean? What do you know?
Do they just come back and then she's like, you guys broke the rules. And because Xaden's rebel child, he's going to jail.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can happen in this next book.
The one thing I don't ever want is a Dane sex scene. Because apparently there was a book reading and she read a chapter where it was like, and Dane unbuckles his belt. And I was like, and no. I will literally skip ahead.
I will skin myself alive. I will set the book on fire like I'm a dragon.
I know.
Like that poor kid.
Those burnt ends are going to become burnt pages.
Yeah. No, thank you. No, thank you.
I don't know. Everyone gets a redemption arc, right?
Sure.
What would Dane have to do to redeem himself for you guys?
I don't know, to be honest.
Me either. I really feel like there's no way back.
Because here's the issue. Because here's the issue. He is, at this point, not even likable. So where you have characters that are bad, right? Let's use Damon Salvatore as an example. That man could burn down an orphanage, and I'll just be like, he and Elena had a fight. It's fine. But that's because his entire character from the beginning, while bad and evil and did terrible things, was incredibly likable. Where Dane has never been likable to me.
Dane could rescue a whole orphanage, and I'd still be like, fuck you and the click you claim.
Yeah. So,
I mean, let's not act like Violet woke up in sunshine in love with Xaden.
No, she kisses him because she forgets and then she remembers and it's like, pow, 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 pow. But also, again, I think overreacting, but it's fine.
I think this is just a lover spat and they're going to get over it.
100%.
100%. Yeah. You can't break up the family, girl. This is what it is.
Every relationship got its ups and downs.
Her brother, I think her brother will have a hand in that because, he's been alive. So her brother's been lying to her. You know what I mean? So, and there's reasons for that.
If they give if they give Dane, I combined Xaden and Dane. If they give Dane, anyone, let it be a whole new girl or let it be a girl who's let it be Mira or something crazy like that, that someone's going to piss off Violet, at her
I
throat,
still don't want to hear about it though, is the thing.
Sure
the
don't.
Only way I want to hear about Dane unbuckling his belt if it's like a ruse and then they chop off his pee-pee.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm really excited for the second book. I'm so stoked. I can't wait to start reading it. It's the first book for me, Audible, was 20 hours. So let's rock and roll.
I mean, I have the second book. It looks real cool. It's got black pages.
Yeah. Burned edges.
Girl, I have the second book with the black pages. And then because I went to a midnight thing, I was able to purchase the first book with the black pages too.
My first book is regular.
And the burnt pages one has 2 chapters from Xaden's point of view. So it's the one with the dagger fight. And then it's the whole dragon fight after she kills
Don't
the
tell me I got to buy this book all over again.
I know.
I was kind of glad that I didn't already buy it. Cause I was like, ooh, and bonus chapters. And
I just want to read them. I just need to know. I just want his point of view from that dagger scene because. But yeah, anything else? This is a long one, guys, but we did it. I'm really proud of us because it's such a good book.
I just want us to wrap up so I can read some more of book 2, even though I should go to bed.
Amazing. Well, then we're going to wrap it up. Guys, the strike is over, so we are going to be back in full-fledged circles. Congratulations to SAG-AFTRA.
Woo, woo, woo!
Proud. So we'll put this up on YouTube. It'll be on all your favorite podcast streaming platforms, and then we'll be back with all of our fun reviews and talkback shows. We've got some things to make up. So until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye.